Hello, everyone. Okay, you guys, I have told you about a little bit about Stephanie. I'm so excited to have her on here. So, first of all, welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Oh, I am so excited too. And so, like I said, Stephanie is an education coach and consultant. And if you've been listening to this at all, you know that we've had all over the place with education. And if you're brand new, I personally have four kids that are 16, 14, 14, and 12. And we do some homeschooling. We have some dual enrollment happening. We've done every kind of school under the spectrum. And now we're getting to this pivot point, right? That we're really looking at the future. So I cannot
Mm-hmm.
wait to see what Stephanie is going to share with us today. So, but before we get into that, you are obviously a leader and education coach and consultant, like you said, and you provide these custom educational consulting and coaching for high
Mm-hmm.
school students,
Mm-hmm.
educators, and schools that equips all stakeholders to build a pathway to a future where teens are excited to pursue. And how, I mean, not to be redundant, how exciting would it be to have your teen excited to pursue, right? And not just
Right,
dreaded or not just
right.
lackadaisical and like, well, I guess this is what I have to do next. So I guess this is what I'm going to do, right? Or the
Right.
dread. And that's what you get to specialize in. So I would love to
Mm-hmm.
know how you've gotten to this place and what
Mm-hmm.
has your journey been like to be this educational leader that you are today?
That's a really great question, and it's a very detailed story. So I'm going to give you like the snapshot because we don't need to talk too much about it. But to establish that I actually do know what I'm talking about, I have wanted to be a teacher since I was in the second grade. I had a second grade teacher who inspired me, and it never changed.
Mm-hmm.
So all through high school, all through middle school, I'm watching and learning because I'm like, I'm going to be a teacher. I need to figure this out before I get there. I chose to go to the top teaching school in the nation at that point, and it still is ranked one in the top 10, which is incredible because I had no idea the training I received was so state of the art. I taught in California, which is where I grew up, for 10 years. I taught in a public school, but I also taught for what was a preliminary charter school, if you will. It was a school within a school, and I worked with the demographic of kids that the other teachers didn't want to work with. It was at-risk kids that they thought were going to cause problems and were never really on task in class, and all those kinds of kids. And we got them through high school and graduated and successful. And I learned during that time that, a kid who's stereotyped in one way will live up to that stereotype. But a kid who is stereotyped or labeled in a different way will live up to that label too. And so I learned that if I could help them see who they were and who they already could be and what their future could hold for them, they tended to start believing that too. And so
Mm-hmm.
helping them develop what was not even termed at this point, because I started teaching in 1991, so it's been a long time. It was not even termed a growth mindset or a limited mindset, that whole thing. I just understood that these kids felt stuck, and I didn't like them being stuck because I thought they could do better. They could definitely do something. I never believed that somebody can't accomplish something. And so working with those kids and training them to believe that they could do something and then working with them intensely for 3 years, I learned a ton about kids, and I learned a ton about the education system, and I learned a ton about the stereotypes. And so breaking those down, I thought, oh, this is the best thing ever. When you have a kid who didn't believe they could graduate because they're in a gang and they don't have any parents at home and their home life is like, they make Law and Order episodes about it. When they graduate and they have certification to be an EMT, and they're like, I'm doing something, and they're getting out of what they're stuck in, there's no better feeling in the world for me as an educator. So that was the first part. Well, during this time, I'm also having kids. Now I have a 25-year-old, God, no, 24, and a 20-year-old. Oh my gosh, he just turned 20. So I have no more teenagers. But I was having these kids, and I thought, well, do I stay home? Do I work? What does this look like? My husband got a new job, and we moved to South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a huge move.
Yes.
And he was traveling. He said, let's just have you stay home and so on. So I stayed home for a while. My kids went off to school. I was so happy on the day both my son and my daughter were finally in school. And then my daughter had some troubles. There was some bullying. There was just some not good things. And I watched how the school responded. And nothing against our school. They were trying to be as supportive as possible, but you can't stop the cancer of bullying the way they were trying. And so we brought our daughter home. And we homeschooled her 4th through 8th, and my son decided he wanted home too, so we homeschooled him 1st through 5th. and had an amazing experience. So I'm a homeschool educator for my own kids, and the program that we taught in, I became a teacher for them too. So I taught English for the homeschool program, and then so I worked in that dynamic, and I realized, oh yeah, these kids, they don't think they cannot do things. There's an environment here that matters. They've been shown that they have opportunity to do things differently. They don't fit that traditional mold. Fast forward, my daughter went to a private school for a year, decided it was not for her, went to public school. Our son, meanwhile, he was doing well in the public school, but not so great. And we ended up having the opportunity to move back to South Carolina because we had moved to Missouri for a while, came back and taught. I started teaching again in a charter school. This particular charter school was based on a premise of elite athletics and elite academics. So kids who went there got dual enrollment credit starting as early as their sophomore year of high school. And they also got elite training with a ton of recruiting if they wanted to play collegiate sports. There's also a third element. If you didn't want to be that, that was fine too. He wanted to be a collegiate athlete, and he is at this day, and he earned 45 college credits before he even got to college. So I watched that environment, but when these kids showed up to this school, they were showing up full of anxiety, anger, fear, just believing that they were never going to be good enough if they couldn't get a 4.0 or higher. Now it's like a 6-point scale. I don't even know where that came from. If they didn't get up there, they were never going to get into college, which meant they were never going to be successful, and they were failures. Well, that's not true. I know that, you know that, but somehow our culture had translated the message of success to one way only. You've got to go to college to be successful, and it's not true. But they had been molded into that belief, and their parents, no judgment on them, had been molded into that too. It started when I first started teaching. It's been going on, and I thought, there's got to change. I left teaching, got my coaching certification, and decided I'm going to change the education world one kid at a time and help them break that mold. But in the meantime, I also got hired to work with schools to help them build that culture of success, to make sure that all kids could be successful, not just the ones who are going off to college, and to promote that idea of success. Because if you or your listeners have ever been in a high school, they promote signing day for athletes, and they promote the college acceptance letter. When kids think about community college or trade schools or any other, the military, not often as celebrated, and that's not okay. Yeah. We need to make sure they're all celebrated. So that's I hope that's enough, not too much.
Yes,
that's my
no. I think that's fascinating. And I was taking notes while you were going along, like, especially in the beginning with these generational cycles that we see, right? And trying to break these generational molds so you can be unstuck and be free. And the whole be, do, have, right? Be the person that you need to believe it first though, right?
Yes, right.
Yeah. And so, I even have this tattoo on my wrist, and the first step right here, it's because it's like my life journey. It's my faith journey even, but believe is the very first thing, and you need to believe it before you can be it. So be, do, and then you have, right? It's not that you already have it or that you're already that kind of person. You need to believe that you can be. So anyway, I love that journey and all the moves. We did a move to, we only did half a country though. You did a whole country. We did half a country. And we went from Indianapolis to North Carolina back in 2015. So I get the big move thing for sure. But I find it really interesting that especially in this elitist school you were going in, I mean, you really swung the pendulum from one side to another, Oh
yeah.
going there, but it gave you so much perspective. And what I find fascinating is that the kids going into the elite school had the same internal dialogue as the kids that were, coming from gangs.
Yes, they were just as trapped as each other. There's nobody was less trapped. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something to very much keep in mind. And, I came from a background of, my mom didn't go to college, but darn it if I wasn't going to college, right? But I always wanted to go to college. So that wasn't an issue. But did I always want to? Because that was always the path. I don't know. I can't go back and, and pick apart that psychology there, but I did. And I loved it. And I have degrees in biology, psychology. And I've been able to use them in so many different ways in my life. But when it came to our kids,
Mm-hmm.
so many people, they're like, oh, you have kids, you have to set up a 529. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay. So we did it for like a year. And then we really started, that was for my oldest, she's 16 now. And we started thinking more when she was even younger. And we're like, well, I don't want to pigeonhole her into
Right.
something that who knows, she might not want to do. There's plenty of super successful people out
Mm-hmm.
there, both
Mm-hmm.
monetarily successful, but also even more importantly, emotionally successful, right? And fulfillment successful
Right.
in life, working for
Right.
nonprofits and all of these things that
Right.
did not go to college. And so I'm like, I don't know. So we backed out of that one and we set up different funds for our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't tell you how many people have been like, and I'm not saying something against a 529. You want to do 529, that's great. I'm
Right.
saying for our decision, for our family, it just was not in the cards, but we got so much flack for that. And every time
Right.
we brought up why, people would just look at us sideways. And so
Yeah.
I find that really interesting. So tell me a little bit about that. Where do you think this comes from? This
Mm-hmm.
must do high school, must do college, grad work
Mm-hmm.
is cut and paste, but where,
Yeah.
because my mom didn't go to college and I don't feel like that was the case in the 60s, 70s by
Mm-mm.
any
Nope.
means. 80s, we were
Nope.
kind of transitioning, but by the time I graduated high school in 96, and it was a pretty set in
Yep.
stone,
Yep.
you know.
It was, and you're right in saying it was what is it when you put a frog in a pot of water and you slowly turn up the heat and never knows it's being boiled,
Mm-hmm.
right? The same was happening in education. So when I first graduated high school, I graduated high school in 1987. I was not of the majority going off to a 4-year college. I was definitely not in the majority actually knowing what I wanted to do. So I had that difference. Most of my students, my fellow classmates, went to a community college or went right into working with their families in their family business, or maybe went to a trade school and got some certifications and some things so they could get into an industry area. That was kind of where it is. When I graduated college with my teaching certification 5 years later and stepped back into the high school setting, that was still kind of the dynamic. And this was a time when there were no standards, there was no aligned curriculum, there was no established curriculum. You could walk into one English one classroom and another English one classroom, they'd be completely different.
Mm.
Maybe the same books, but not necessarily the same essay topics or tests or anything else. And so we were doing fine. We had a great time. Along the way, more and more parents started saying, we want a better life for our kids, understandably. Now, the 80s had ushered in that whole age of glitter and money and car phones and, what is it, LA law and all that kind of stuff. That had started, yeah? So they wanted their kids to go off to college because those were where you got those degrees. Well, colleges were saying, hey, wait, these kids aren't coming prepared. They're not coming with enough base knowledge that we need them to have to be successful here. So they started communicating with school districts and state education departments and partnering and saying, especially state schools, we need you to do a better job in the high schools to make sure that these kids are prepared. So what suffered? The arts programs, the trades programs. You notice those all started going away, and now how you have these graduation requirements of 4 years of English, 3+ years of math, 4 years of social studies-ish, 4 years of science, depending. And you have some electives you get to throw in there, but nothing strategic, nothing specific about developing towards a career pathway. That has since morphed, and now everybody was like, well, this is a school that goes to college. Now you have school report cards. Well, what was that report card based on? How many kids went to college? How high were their ACT scores? How high were their SAT scores? That indicated property values, which indicated taxes that go into the school system, right? So the system changed in what was valued and what was important, and as that became much more widespread, now we add in, at the time when I first started teaching, there was no internet, none. There was no way to let anybody else know what you were doing. 5 years in, there was internet, and we got to all of a sudden be expanded to the entire country, what was going on in education. Now we all got connected in all kinds of ways. And then you started standards, and now you have standardized testing because we were failing as, a country. And it's all ugly when you look at it in that perspective. Yeah. So it's been this slow rise of college is the only way. And it's gotten to the point, and you indicated that mold even, that the people that your world are living in, that you have to save money for college as a parent. Yes, you have to do that 529, or you're not doing a good job as a parent. You're somehow, putting your child at a disadvantage.
Right.
And that means you're expected to get them into a high school, get good grades, and then they get onto a good college, which is going to give them a good job, which is going to give them a good life. The problem is nobody ever defines that. It was just this assumption. And the millennial generation proved us wrong. They said, wait, you told us to go to college. You told us to take on hundreds of thousands of debts because you told us we were going to have a good job that was going to pay off these debts and we were going to be okay. And that didn't happen. We had 2008. We had all kinds of problems. So we're becoming more aware, but the system, of course, is slow to change. Education is one of the slowest systems in the world to change. And so it's gradually deciding whether or not it wants to move that way. And that's where I'm coming in. That's where other people like me come in who are trying to help schools recognize it can be different. And we have to help parents recognize it can be different. And we have to help kids realize you can be successful in a variety of ways, but we have to retrain the way they think.
Right. I find it so interesting. So my oldest is very, very academically inclined. She just always has been. And it's really easy. And it was really easy to be like, oh, she's very academically inclined. She's doing very well in school. She could do, A, B, C, D. Therefore, she is a well-rounded, great kid and doing super well. Right. And the gears started turning a while ago and she is, a great kid and everything. But I just had an emotional intelligence expert on here a few episodes ago and talking about how, when that academic is really high, a lot of times the emotional intelligence is low, the interpersonal might be somewhere in between and things. And I was like, oh, that is so true. And it's definitely, what we've seen. And it really does come down to why did getting an A become the be all end all and define who you are as a person. And I experienced that myself. I am not like my child and I was not super academically gifted. I was definitely, I wasn't terrible. I was an A-B student. I don't know if my daughter's ever gotten a B in her life, but I was an A-B student, but my friends, I went to a high school that kind of sounds like the one that you were talking about a little bit. There was a lot of elite families in this high school. I was not one of them. I lived kind of across the street, but that's fine. I still was I was zoned for this school. I was like, what am I doing here? We didn't have a downtown. We had an uptown where I went to high school. And so, anyway, and my husband just laughs about that. My husband and I have been together since we were 18. And so, I would take him to my hometown. He's like, what is happening? Why is there kids in Lamborghinis? I'm like, I don't know. I have my 1980 Cutlass, going along.
Yep, for sure.
But I faced that because I had so many friends that went off to these amazing schools on amazing scholarships and everything. And I went to a great school, but I definitely didn't get any scholarships there. And so I defined myself as I am not smart, right? I am not smart. Because I don't get these grades. I don't have this interest in my academic life. Therefore, I am less than. And it really did carve a path for me in some ways until I was able to become much smarter in my 30s and 40s and see that that wasn't the case. But that took a long time. And I never wanted to, do that with my own kids. So we know kind of what happened. So what are when you go into these schools and talk to these families, what are some of these options that you are telling them, right? College is an option, right?
Yes.
But there's other ones too. So can you run through some of those?
Yeah, I actually help them focus on, career pathways. Let's talk about careers. And that's usually the premise that I have them focus on with their kids. It's not about what option you're going to do, not what college, whatever. It's what career, what do you want to spend your time doing in your 30s or whatever, right? But once we come back, that we look at, see, how do you get trained to be in that career? And there's a variety of ways. There's actually, depending on the career, 6 options that you can involve yourself in after high school. Combinations of them are key, so they can become a lot. The traditional 4-year college is absolutely one of those options. It's now actually not 4 years. The average length of time in a college setting is 5.5, because most students go and they don't really know what they're doing, and they change their major multiple times, and it gives colleges more money because they have to take more classes. The side part of that is the collegiate athlete. A lot of people find a lot of prestige in getting the D1 school, scholarship if they think their kid's that great in the sport and they get that scholarship or they get that offer and so on. So that's actually a side issue, because that requires its own preparation in order to become a collegiate athlete, and it's a whole different dynamic when it comes to school. The level of school indicates the kind of education that it's focused on and all kinds of things. So that's its own option. Then you have the traditional options that were very much important and valued before everybody placed emphasis on the four-year college. The first one would be the local community college, right? Most people overlook the community college, one, because they don't think it gives their child a chance to get that college experience. In my personal opinion, why that freshman, sophomore college experience is so important, I'm not quite sure, because as a college student, as a parent of a college student, and as a person who's on college campuses, it's not really about education. It's about all kinds of things.
Right.
And you're paying for it. So, but most parents overlook it because of that, and there's a stigma. If you go to community college, it's because you weren't smart enough to get into four-year college, which is not true. Community colleges today offer a ton of resources, from apprenticeship programs to certification programs to associate's degrees and associate's degrees that transfer. And so all of that is something you can find on any community college campus, and that can do a variety of things for students. You can stay home, save money, get your general education requirements out of the way, and transfer to a four-year college, and you will have saved, depending on where you are, anywhere from thousands to 500s. It depends. A lot of community colleges are offering their classes for free. So you're not paying for those general education courses that at a regular four-year university you're paying anywhere between $16,000 and $25,000, $45,000 in that year four, right? So there's a big difference, and you're not paying living expenses. But you're also looking at particular certifications, so you can get trained in any number of industries. You can get trained in cosmetology, hospitality, culinary. You can work as a chef. You can work as a baker. All kinds of careers can be housed in a 18 to 24 month certification program, which often has an associate's degree attached to it. Parents often balk because they're like, well, it's only skills training. They need some college. Not quite sure why, but that's okay. Go get your AA with it. It's fine. You get business. There's a ton. If you haven't looked at what the offerings are of your local community college, you're missing out. So there's one option. The next option are the trade schools and apprenticeship programs that are local to your areas. The trades, as we've now seen, are in a huge demand. Huge. Yeah. All of us locked down on COVID wanted everything to be done to our house, and there were no people to do it. There's not enough.
Yeah.
Right? Learning how to build things, fix things, create things, all of those hands-on learnings is what a trade school can do. In addition to things like cybersecurity, you can learn all kinds about IT and taking care of computers and building computer systems. I mean, there's endless opportunities for people who go into trade jobs or trade careers, right? So trade schools provide that. The benefit of trade schools is, one, they're usually less expensive than a four-year college, definitely, but also you're being taught by industry experts, people who are actually working in the industry still, versus sometimes at a community college, but also at a four-year college. These are teachers who are teaching about the subject. They may have been in the industry at some point, but they're probably not currently in it, right? So you're getting real hands-on mentorship and experience. And trade schools are set up to want to guarantee you employment. Their popularity, their success is based on the success of their graduates. Whereas a four-year college relies on the fact that, there's a career center here, we'll help you try and get a job if you come to us. Trade schools are focused on, we're going to help you get a career by the time you graduate. How can we help you? What do you need? It's a very different dynamic. An apprenticeship program is actually paid work experience with college degrees or college credit added to it. And it depends on your area whether or not they're offered. Traditionally, across the Atlantic dynamic, apprenticeships are huge in Europe. Huge, right? They're starting to become more popular here. In South Carolina, where we live, we're the nation's leading apprenticeship program. And we partner with all these big industries who came to us from Europe. We have Volvo, we have Blackbaud, we have, Boeing, you have all these things here. Well, they came, we need apprentices. We didn't have any. So they built programs. And so you can go as an adult, work for 2 years. They pay you a scalable wage during those 2 years. You have a mentor who's working with you, training with you. You also take college classes at the same time. So by the time you're done, you're self-sufficient, plus 2 years of experience and industry networking. What's not to like about that, in my estimation, right?
Yeah.
You can also do some of these programs as a high school student, and there is some definite determination about these, because you have to finish your high school classes and do some of the college classes, and you're working. So it's for a definite unique person who is really driven, because there's a lot of work into that. But the industry areas vary by location, and so if your child is interested, I think here we have a huge hospitality one, because Charleston is, huge in hospitality. We have a lot of airplane mechanics and mechatronics and all kinds of things. So that's the second one. The third one is a gap year. And everybody, when I talk to a gap year, they freak out. No, my kid can't sit on the couch playing video games and working minimum wage for a year. That's nothing. Okay, gap years are very different than that. There's actually a gap year association. It's an accredited program that goes out and looks at all the programs that are out there and offers its certification, so you know you're getting something valuable. Plus, they offer financial aid through the FAFSA. So you're not just doing some willy-nilly trip here. But what they do is they offer several things to students. One can be a mental break from the burnout they've probably achieved trying to get into that great college. If they still want to go to college, they always recommend deferring it for 6 months to a year and then taking your gap season before you start college. There's no reason not to at that point, especially if you're gaining experience that's going to help you for your career or just help you in personal development, right? The second type is doing a missions trip, right? If you're based in your faith and you want to go and serve in your faith, then go do a missions trip. This can be done while you're in high school, before you go to college, in between semesters. It can be done at any point, right? There are fees associated with them. They're not for free, for sure, but the experience you get is invaluable, and it does come to a certain kind of kid. Is your kid ready to go off onto the world not knowing anybody, right? And being part of a group and learning on their own, is that something they can handle? So you've got to take a look at that. So then community colleges. Oh, the next one is the military, often overlooked. And can I just tell you, when I was doing research for the book I wrote about all of this, the military impressed me the most. Yes, there are their political stuff, and I'm not going to touch that. What I'm talking to you is about the opportunities a student has in the military. And there's 3 ways to do the military. You can enlist, you can go through an ROTC program, or you can go through a service academy. Enlistment usually comes right after high school. ROTC programs usually come after college. And a service academy, you have to be accepted into it. Your education is free at that service academy, with the caveat that you're paying it back with your service to your country in the military afterwards, right? So there's all of these dynamics. The difference between the military and any other option is that the minute you enter, you are getting state-of-the-art training, because the government has to have the state-of-the-art training to protect our country, right? You're also getting paid and getting housing stipends and getting food stipends and getting full benefits.
Wow.
From the minute you are in. No other option offers all of that to any student, right? Now, I get it. Your mama heart is saying, but they might die in the front line. Yes, this is true. There are 2 things I have in response to that. And my research indicates that when you choose to enlist in the military or go to service academy or so on, you get to choose your career field. Not all career fields are combat-based. You don't have to be in combat, so there's not a guarantee that the military puts you on the front lines.
Right.
Second, should you choose that, if that's your child's heart, if that's where they really want to go and serve their country, should something happen, their family is taken care of for life. That doesn't happen in any other option. So those are some things. I don't ever want anybody to think that they have to do this so they can get anything. I'm just saying this is one of the benefits, but it can also be a drawback. When I interviewed a captain in the U.S. Navy, she served on an aircraft carrier. She said, think about an aircraft carrier. It is a microcosm of a city. Anything that you can think of that exists in the civilian world exists on an aircraft carrier. There are chefs. There are barbers. There are veterinarians for the dogs they might have on hand. There are mechanics. There are IT. There are cybersecurity. everything you can think of is on that aircraft carrier. The same is true for any military branch. Any career you can think of is in the military. And someone who gets into the military gets that training and then graduates from it, or does not renew their contract, they end up getting what's called a GI Bill. So when you're in the military, you can get up to 1 year of college paid for, and that's basically all you have time for in every 4-year contract. After that, you get up to 3 years of college paid for and a housing stipend to pay for your housing while you're going to college. There's no other option that gives you that either. So there's a whole host of benefits to this, but it also depends if you go to a service academy. So if you go to college first, you enter in as an officer, versus after high school, you enter in as an enlistee. And that just causes different ranks, and that causes different trainings and a whole bunch of other things. I tell parents, if your student is at all interested, go talk to a veteran, get the full honest story. Let your kid talk to the veteran privately. Do not be in that room. They got to get it honest from themselves. Then meet a recruiter with a bunch of questions, and don't sign anything that day. Because the one thing that is a definite difference is once you sign a contract with the military, it's a contract. You cannot decommit. So it has to be a very solid decision that you're making.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I know that everyone listening took a bajillion notes like I did. And like I said, I have this coming up, like we're going, she's at the end of her junior year. And I was like, well, I guess we have to start doing, college visits and things like that. And she personally wants to go into psychology herself. And so, yeah, but it's just interesting to hear all of these different things. A gap year is definitely not off the table, though. We've talked a lot about that. She has a travel bug in her, like her parents do. And so, yeah, whether that's, studying somewhere or doing missions work, I don't know, but wow. Thank you for so much for laying this all out. And I have, lunch with my husband soon. And so I'm going to just bring my pad of paper and be like, so we have all of this to talk about.
Can I give you a little bit of direction on that conversation?
Yes,
not with your husband, with your daughter. And this is for all parents. We often take a look at what do you want to do? And they say, well, I might want to do something with psychology, which is fantastic. But rarely do we have them explore the actual different careers within that industry area. To define specifically what they want to do. Some things that they think associated with psychology actually fall under sociology. And so we want to make sure that they really understand the dynamics of the potential careers. If she wants, for example, to work in a clinical setting and be able to dispense medications, that's a whole doctorate program, completely different. And that sets you up for a whole different dynamic in terms of financing college and all kinds of things, right? But if what she wants to be is a clinical therapist or a counselor in a counseling setting, that can be done in very different ways, right? So that can really help the conversation. And this is what I counsel parents on all the time. Help your child define the career or careers within the industry area they're interested in, and then see how do you get into those careers? What does it take to get there? And that tends to help you see what you need to do. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And for her, we have done that work, and so she wants to work with kids, and she wants to do therapist in a clinical setting with kids. And so there's definitely different paths you could get there. So many, but the common theme seems to be like get a psych degree from a 4-year or sociology, but it's usually psych. And so, but yeah, and she's doing dual enrollment. We talked a little bit about this before we started recording, and she's doing dual enrollment. So she'll go in probably as a second semester sophomore into college, which is good that she knows what she wants to do, because by that point you're like, you need to lock in and start, getting the gears going. But we'll see. She's also 16, and I am not going to be, she wanted to be a teacher for a really, really long time. And then, it kind of moved into this over the last few years. And I'm not going to say, well, you're 16, you made your decision and this is what you're doing until you're 65, So, we'll just see where life takes us. But knowing all the options is so important, and knowing it's not about the education. It's about the kid. It's about the person. It's about their life, right? Their confidence and respect in themselves and understanding and being wise out in the world. That interpersonal emotional intelligence, like we talked about, interpersonal relationships. So they know how to connect with people and move through life and become, you know, the self-driven leaders that they can be in whatever capacity that looks like.
Right.
Whew, goodness, this was so good. Okay. Well, I know we are running a little bit late, but this is such great material. And I want to touch on just for a second, this idea of parental burnout, because I think so many, especially I work with a lot of teens and tweens. We were talking about all the different labels those groups have.
Right.
But anyway, pretty much like 10 and up, I work with everybody, but that's the bulk, because that is where a lot of parents are paying a little bit more attention. They're noticing some things that they aren't, so keen on. Maybe there's some separation, some space there. And all of these things happening. But with that, there's a lot of parental burnout that happens there too, right? There's a lot of opinions when kids get into middle and high school, and it can feel like everything that you say, especially when you're talking about education or talking about their school, they see it, your child can see it as you're coming at them and you're always in war mode, right? And reprimand mode. And that's not necessarily where your heart is, but it's their truth that they're seeing. So, and that can really lead to burnout. So can you tell me a little bit more about the parental burnout and what that looks like and what you see?
Yeah, absolutely. Parental burnout is a real thing. It's heaviness that we have towards our responsibilities as a parent. It's the ease we want to just abdicate those responsibilities because we don't want to fight with our kids anymore. We don't want that angst. We want to love our little babies that we used to have, used to look up to us all the time, and now they're not anymore. And what happened? And I don't even know, right? So this is what I've noticed. And again, I'm a parent of a 20-year-old and a 24-year-old. My daughter is a strong-willed child. If you've ever heard of Dr. Dobson's Strong-Willed, she could be the cover of that book. I mean, my goodness. And she ran me ragged because I was trying to control what she did, because I was afraid as a parent that what she did was reflection on me as a parent. Very much afraid of that. And I think a lot of us, first and foremost, struggle with that. We believe that what our children do is a reflection on us as a parent, and it's not. Right. It's just not. Your children are individuals. They were created uniquely for themselves, and what they are is a reflection of themselves, not you. So I think that's the first part that I actually do talk with parents about, is how much are you owning your child's life as representative of who you are as a parent? And that's a big question a lot of parents don't stop to think about. I can definitely honestly tell you that my daughter, I owned what she did as my value. If she was behaving well in class, I was a good parent. If she was acting out in class, man, I had to fix it at home because I was messing up. It's not safe. It's not a good environment for your children or for us. And that definitely contributed to a lot of burnout. As I became a coach, and I'm going to tell this short story and then we'll move on to how the burnout was affected. I had to do some practicing, and my daughter happened to call me one night. She was in college at the time, and she said, "Mom, I got this problem." I said, "Wait, I'm in this coaching program. Can I just try coaching you through this? Do you mind?" And she said, "Okay." She had no idea what I was doing, but that's okay. At the end of that conversation, we spent 45 minutes on the phone. I didn't offer a single shred of advice. I only asked her questions. And she said, "Mom, this was the best conversation you and I have ever had. I feel like you finally saw who I am, and now I know exactly what I want to do, and you helped me figure that out." You can't get better connection with your kids than that. And so the more I work with teenagers, I say the exact same things in a way that all parents do. I just get the kids to say it, not me.
Yeah.
So when you're talking with your kids, the problem is we tend to talk at them. We tend to tell them. We tend to offer our advice, all with an amazing heart, but we own all the research. We want to learn everything about all these things so we can be intelligent enough to tell them all about it. And we want to make sure they're getting their grades done in class, and we're communicating with teachers, and we're taking on all of these responsibilities because we're afraid our children won't be able to do it. Well, what message does that send to your child? It tells them they're not capable, so why would they try?
Right.
So as your child ages, what I tell parents to do is start backing away from owning anything within their world. And when they come to you with a problem, "I don't know what to do. My friends are upset with me." What would you like to do about that? How do you want to handle that? What do you think is the cause of that? Don't tell them what they should do. Don't take on the ownership of their emotional drama. Let them own it and then walk away. They have to figure out their futures. You can offer, I'm here when you want to talk about your future. Just know that your dad and I, or your mom and I, or whatever, we decided that by the time you're 18, if you're not taking care of, you're not in some kind of education program, you're going to be paying full rent here. So just so you know, we're here to help you figure it all out, but this is the boundary we're setting. And we never set those boundaries or expectations. We don't take the time to think about it because we're too busy fixing our kids' problems instead of thinking about the kind of adult we want to raise. We want to raise resilient children. We want to raise problem solvers and critical thinkers, but we don't allow them to solve the problems in their own way or to critically think about what they want to do. This is why we have burnout. We are overwhelmed trying to fix our work problems, our marriage problems, our kids' problems, our friends' problems, and everything else, because this is what we are supposed to do, which is not true. The more we ask our children to own their own world and don't engage in the battles when they fight against it, the better off we're helping them. It's tough. It's not an easy transition at all. But can I tell you, my daughter, coming back to her, she had a ton of struggles when she was in college, and we had told her she should come home, and she didn't want to. She wanted to finish it out, strong will. And so she did, and every time she'd call, I would cringe because it'd be some new drama. But when I started coaching, I was like, well, what opportunity was she going to figure out for herself today? How is she going to figure this out for herself? Let's see what happens. Whole different dynamic, right? So this is kind of what I hope parents learn to do, is instead of increasing the mold around them by keeping them in it, we let go of the entire mold itself and let our children create it for themselves, and we get to guide them along that journey.
Oh my gosh. Yes. This is exactly, I was just talking with someone the other day and doing some coaching, and this is exactly what I was talking about. Like we are leading them, and we are helping them, and we are doing exactly what you said. We are just asking them the questions and helping them figure it out, giving them the tools to figure it out. Right. Oh my goodness. Well, this was truly amazing. I hope that everyone listening has been able to crack the mold, if not break the mold, in your understanding and in your thinking about what is going on in these teens, and especially in their path toward their future and what that's going to do. So tell us where we can find you and get more information.
Yeah, the best place is stephaniehaynes.net, and that's my website, and there's a specific page dedicated just to parents, and I put on free resources on there. You know, when you sign up for those, I send emails each week, just kind of encourage you, equip you, give you stuff, right? Because I give a ton of stuff away. The second place, if you're on Instagram, go to edcoachstephhaynes, and you can follow me on there and see what I've got in terms of advice and suggestions and just strategies. The third place, and the newest place I'm most excited about, is on YouTube. I just launched a new YouTube channel that is talking to parents and educators. So from both sides of that experience, I'm talking into how can we best equip teens. And it's not named yet because I need 100 subscribers. So I'm offering a contest if you want to do it, but go to Stephanie Haynes LLC on YouTube, and you will be able to find my channel there. And there's just a ton of free content. And I feel like it's important to just equip parents as best as I can, equip educators in schools as best as I can, because they're the ones that influence the teens around them. If you're interested in more of what I've just talked about today, my book is on Amazon, and it's called College is Not Mandatory, A Parent's Guide to Navigating All the Options Available to Our Kids After High School. And it has the background we kind of covered, all of the options, and then I give a coaching guide. How do you have these conversations with your kids? How do you set them up? What does it look like? And what kind of questions do I ask? I put them all in the guide there. And you, of course, customize them for your own child.
All right. Well, I just subscribed to your YouTube. So yay. And I hope you listening do too. This was a wonderful talk. Thank you so much for being here and all of the topics that we covered. I know it was super impactful to me, and I know it was for others as well. Thank you so much, you guys. And I will see you next week on another episode of the 6570 Family Project Podcast. Happy building.